One of my phone consultation clients expressed considerable astonishment that he had been able to realize so much uninterrupted progress with heavy-duty, high-intensity training. And I explained to my client that such should not be a surprise, that there's no mystery to any of this, that people have been growing muscles beyond normal levels for at least 10,000 years, that we live in a knowable, rational universe of absolute clear-cut identity, guided by one set of immutable, never-changing principles, and that the cause and effect relationship between intense exercise and muscle growth has been understood for quite some time, even though the majority of self-styled experts in this field fail to grasp it. I concluded by pointing out to this individual that it is reality and its laws, the laws of nature, that dictate the causes which must be enacted to affect the buildup of muscle mass beyond normal levels, and that once these causes are clearly understood, the task of developing bigger and stronger muscles, in fact, while requiring high-intensity effort, is really quite simple. In this context, the exercise scientist would concern himself with the volume or number of sets being performed. Now, since people who perform no weight training have muscles of normal size, and those who perform some resistance exercise usually do grow larger muscles, perhaps growth stimulation is directly related to the volume. It's not an illogical or irrational place to start an investigation. That's where I would look. That's where I looked. And 80 better still, and 120 sets better still, and so on into infinity. And that's where we find ourselves. There it is, the obvious tenuity, the monumental absurdity of the volume argument, all wrapped up in a singular childlike notion that more is better. It is erroneous, illogical, non-productive, and even counterproductive. The best way to explain a highly abstract principle like intensity is to go to a concrete example in perceptual reality. Let's assume hypothetically that every one of you here today is capable of curling a 100-pound barbell for a maximum of 10 reps to failure. Obviously, audience, the first rep of that set would be the easiest. Or to be more technically precise, we would say the first rep requires the least intensity of effort. The first rep does fatigue you a little bit, however. That's why the second rep is always a little bit harder. Whereas the first rep may require on the order of 8 or 10% intensity of effort, the second rep, you see, may require 15 or 20% intensity of effort. Without belaboring the issue, you know that's how it goes with each successive rep of the set. Each one becomes harder to complete, requiring a more intense effort than did the preceding, until finally we get to the last possible rep in this hypothetical case, again, a set of barbell curls to failure at 10 reps with 100 pounds. The last rep would be the only one where we say it requires literally 100% intensity of effort. You're gritting your teeth, you're shaking all over, and you barely get the bar to the top. Now I ask you, which repetition of that set is more likely to stimulate an increase in strength and muscular size? The first rep, which is the least intense, or the last rep, the hardest one? The only rep requiring 100% intensity of effort. Executing that last, almost impossible rep causes the body to dip into what's called its reserve ability. And since your body only has a small amount of reserve to draw upon before depletion occurs, the body protects itself from future assaults on its reserves by enlarging upon its existing ability through the compensatory buildup of more muscle mass. Only high-intensity training can force the body to resort to its reserve ability sufficiently to stimulate an adaptive response in the form of a muscle mass increase. Repeating tasks that are well within your existing capacity do absolutely nothing to stimulate growth. Ending a set before failure just because an arbitrary number of reps have been completed will do nothing to stimulate an increase or induce growth. Carrying a set to a point where you are forced to utilize 100% of your momentary muscular ability is the single most important factor for increasing strength and size. Working to a point of momentary muscular failure where another rep is impossible despite your greatest effort, ensures that you pass through the breakover point, or that point in the set below which growth is not stimulated and above which you growth is stimulated. Even the detractors of high-intensity training theory would be forced to admit that the last rep of a set to failure is more productive than the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. Thus, without realizing it, they have embraced the first principle of the theory. A few individuals have raised the intelligent question as to whether it is actually necessary to train to failure, where 100% intensity of effort is required to complete the last rep. The problem here, however, is one in measuring intensity. There are only two possible accurate measures of intensity: 0% when you're completely at rest, and 100% when you're exerting yourself maximally. So, as long as you are exerting yourself with 100% intensity of effort, the point is, you have passed through every possible breakover point and growth will be stimulated. One of man's specific physiologic characteristic dictates that the training stress must be cautiously regulated in terms of both volume and frequency. It is his strictly limited recovery ability. The human being does not possess an infinite capacity for tolerating the exhaustive effects of intense physical stresses. This fact is what led Arthur Jones to state, and I quote, "It is only rational to use that which exists in limited supply as economically as possible," close quote. While the principle of intensity must be understood as the first requisite for understanding anything else of value about exercise, the fact of a limited recovery ability is the next key concept that must be grasped in the logically interdependent hierarchy of scientific knowledge and exercise. It is only on the basis of knowing that the body has a limited recovery ability that one may understand why the volume and frequency must be cautiously, even hyper-cautiously regulated.